She was beautiful, bold, and utterly fearless. Chantal Mauduit danced with death on the world's highest peaks and divided the mountaineering world like few others ever had. Nicknamed the Black Widow, whispers followed her from base camps to summits, that she used charm to climb, that she took credit for others' work, that her greatest feats lacked proof. Yet, she kept returning to the deadly 8,000-meter giants, without bottled oxygen, with unmatched ambition. Some saw her as a pioneer, others as a manipulator. And when she died mysteriously on Dhaulagiri, the rumors only grew darker. But who was the real Chantal Mauduit? A heroic climber or a controversial opportunist? Chantal Mauduit was born in Paris, France, on March 24, 1964. When she was just 5 years old, her family moved to Chambéry in the Savoie region of the French Alps. This move brought her close to the towering peaks, where she began hiking in the summer months and skiing during the long winters. The mountains quickly became a central part of her young life, offering a sense of freedom and adventure. At the age of 15, a profound sadness entered Chantal's life when her mother passed away from cancer. In the face of this loss, Chantal found comfort and a new purpose in climbing. She turned to the mountains for solace, seeking a way to cope with her grief and find strength within herself. This turning point marked the beginning of her deep connection with the Alpine world, transforming climbing from a hobby into a vital part of her existence. Chantal quickly showed extraordinary talent, and by the age of 17, she had already tackled some of the most demanding and famous routes in the Alps. These included the imposing north face of the Grand Jurasse, the dramatic spires of the Aiguille du Drou, and the iconic Matterhorn. These early climbs were not easy, demanding skill, endurance, and a fearless spirit. Her rapid progress through these technical routes in the Alps showed her natural ability and her growing passion for the sport. In the early 1990s, Chantal continued to push her limits in the Alps. She ascended the Directissime Jory-Bardil route on the central pillar of Fresnay in the Mont Blanc Massif, together with Catalan climber Ernest Blade. In July 1992, with Blade, Araceli Segarra, and Albert Castellet, she conquered the Bonatti Pillar on the Petit Drou, completing the famous 800-meter route in an impressive 8 hours. Just 1 year later, she completed the challenging Walker Spur on the Grand Jurasse in a single day, starting from Chamonix. In the mid-1990s, she took on the Davies-Gervasuti route on the northwest face of Isle Fouad Occidentale, a 1,050-meter line in the Écrins Massif known for its remote location and technical difficulty. Her climbing ambitions soon took her far beyond the familiar peaks of France. Chantal ventured to the Andes Mountains in South America, where she climbed Nevado Urus, a peak standing at 5,495 meters. She also took part in an expedition to Huascarán, a towering peak of 6,768 meters. Her adventures continued in Bolivia, where she completed the Sajama Traverse at 6,542 meters, and she even ascended Mount William in Antarctica. These expeditions to distant and challenging ranges highlighted her growing desire to explore the world's highest and most remote places, constantly seeking new challenges and pushing the boundaries of her own capabilities. In the summer of 1992, Chantal Mauduit embarked on an expedition to K2, the world's second highest peak, known as the Savage Mountain for its extreme dangers. She was initially part of a Swiss climbing team led by Peter Schwitter. This team attempted to climb the Abruzzi Ridge, a common but difficult route, but they had to stop their ascent between 7,000 and 7,400 meters in early July because of severe bad weather. When the Swiss team decided to leave the mountain, Chantal chose to stay and joined a larger international expedition. This group included climbers from Russia, America, Ukraine, and England. However, Chantal joined this new team without a proper climbing permit, which later caused her serious problems with Pakistani authorities. The international team worked to establish camps and fix ropes on the mountain. Camp 1 was set up at 6,100 meters on June 25th, and Camp 2 at 6,700 meters was reached in early July. Climbers like Thor Kieser, Scott Fisher, and Ed Viesters began fixing the route to Camp 3 through a section called the Black Pyramid. They finished this tough section 10 days later. The climbers faced constantly changing and difficult weather, with short windows of good weather followed by days of snow and strong winds. On August 3, 1992, Chantal Mauduit made history. She reached the very top of K2 without using any extra oxygen. This was a monumental achievement, making her only the fourth woman in the world to ever stand on the summit of K2. However, her successful climb to the top was followed by a terrifying descent that nearly cost her everything. A fierce storm hit the mountain near Camp 4, high up at around 8,000 meters. During this harrowing descent, Chantal became snowblind, meaning she could not see. This made it impossible for her to descend on her own, leaving her stranded and in grave danger. What followed was a dramatic and selfless rescue effort. Two well-known American climbers, Ed Viesturs and Scott Fisher, who were preparing for their own attempt to reach the summit, received word that Chantal was in trouble. They bravely decided to give up their own dream of reaching the top to help her. They, along with Thor Kieser and Alexei Nikiforov, worked together in incredibly difficult conditions to bring her down the dangerous mountain. Nikiforov, who was with Chantal high on the mountain, had to convince an exhausted and disoriented Chantal to continue moving, and he slowly guided her down. Kieser secured safety lines, ensuring their perilous progress. Viesturs and Fisher met them lower down, joining the effort to assist her all the way to base camp. This was a massive team effort, performed entirely without the use of extra oxygen. Despite the life-saving efforts of these climbers, a major controversy began after the rescue. Chantal Mauduit never publicly thanked the men who had risked their own lives and abandoned their summit attempts to save her. Instead, she celebrated her summit success as if the rescue had not happened. This deeply upset many in the climbing community, especially Ed Viesturs, who felt she was ungrateful for the critical assistance she had received. This event became a significant point of concern within the mountaineering world, reinforcing a perception that she sometimes relied heavily on others in high-risk situations without acknowledging their contributions. This incident on K2 was a key moment that began to shape her public image and contributed to the controversial nickname that would follow her. Despite the firestorm of criticism after the K2 rescue, Chantal Mauduit was undeterred. In the years that followed, she pushed forward with a series of bold ascents, Shishapangma and Cho Oyu in 1993, followed by an alleged solo climb of Lhotse in 1996, then Manaslu and Gasherbrum II. These climbs, done without supplemental oxygen, were remarkable on paper, but many came with little documentation, no summit photos, and no reliable witnesses. This pattern of unverified achievements became a defining and divisive aspect of her career. Fueling the controversy was Chantal's increasingly notorious reputation among fellow climbers. The nickname Black Widow haunted her, a label reportedly given by a past lover who claimed she used men to assist her in expeditions and discarded them afterward, much like the spider's grim mating behavior. While the moniker was cruel, it echoed a widespread perception in the high-altitude climbing world. On expedition after expedition, fellow climbers accused her of exploiting the hard work of others while contributing little in return. She was said to frequently rely on other teams to set ropes, stock camps, and carry loads while she conserved energy to make summit bids. Incidents like her collapse on Everest, when she had to be carried down, and the K2 rescue, when others abandoned their own summit attempts to save her, only deepened this image. Some critics took it even further, spreading ugly rumors that Chantal used charm or flirtation to secure help from male climbers. Whispers circulated that she had traded intimacy for favors on expeditions. Though no concrete evidence supported these claims, the gossip became persistent and damaging to her reputation. Yet, Chantal was not without defenders. Close friends and fellow climbers insisted that she was held to an unfair double standard, judged more harshly than men for behaviors common in big mountain climbing, such as using fixed ropes or benefiting from shared logistics. They pointed out that most climbers rely on infrastructure built by others, and that team dynamics on expeditions are rarely as clear-cut as the accusation suggested. Still, the controversies clung to her. Her 1996 alleged solo ascent of Lhotse, if true, a groundbreaking first, drew intense skepticism. No summit photos, no GPS data, not a single climber witnessed her at the top. Even Ed Viesturs, the same man who had risked his life to rescue her on K2, openly doubted her claim. The timing of her summit bid, during the infamous 1996 Everest disaster, only heightened the scrutiny. Some accused her of not spending enough time on the mountain to have legitimately summited, though a few defenders argued her movements matched a summit attempt. 2 weeks later, Chantal summited Manaslu, again without oxygen, an ascent generally accepted. but, like her other climbs, lacking clear verification. In 1997, she added Gasherbrum 2 to her list. Though these feats cemented her standing among elite high-altitude climbers, the pattern remained. Bold claims, limited proof, growing friction with her peers. By the late 1990s, Chantal Mauduit was one of the most famous and most controversial female climbers in the world, admired for her daring, beauty, and ambition, resented by many for her perceived opportunism and questionable tactics. Her legacy was already deeply polarizing, and her nickname, the Black Widow, would continue to shadow her to the very end. In the spring of 1998, Chantal Mauduit returned to Dhaulagiri 1, the world's 7th highest mountain, located in western Nepal. She had attempted to climb Dhaulagiri once before in the autumn of 1997, but had been forced to turn back above high camp due to unfavorable conditions. Dhaulagiri is known as one of the most dangerous 8,000-meter peaks. It is infamous for its steep terrain, frequent avalanches, and extreme isolation. The mountain has a notoriously high fatality rate, making it a formidable and fearsome objective for even the most experienced climbers. The combination of its immense altitude, unpredictable weather, and avalanche-prone slopes presented a deadly challenge. Chantal was part of a Spanish-led expedition on Dhaulagiri. Her climbing partner for this expedition was Charing Sherpa, a 45-year-old experienced Sherpa who had partnered with her on several previous climbs. Their long-standing partnership suggested a level of trust and familiarity, which is crucial in such high-stakes environments. They established Camp 2 at approximately 21,120 feet, or 6,400 meters, on the mountain. From this camp, they were preparing to make their push for the summit. However, the mountain was hit by heavy snowfall between May 10th and 11. The conditions became extremely dangerous, with a high risk of avalanches. Because of these perilous conditions, other teams on the mountain decided to retreat to base camp, recognizing the severe danger. But Chantal and Charing made the decision to stay in Camp 2, perhaps hoping for a break in the weather or determined to seize any opportunity for a summit bid. But as the storm raged on, the mountain grew ominously quiet. Radio contact with Camp 2 went unanswered. Other climbers, now safely back at base camp, watched the upper slopes anxiously. No movement was seen, no figures appeared on the ridges. The fresh snow buried all traces of their camp. Finally, after several days of radio silence, a small group of climbers made the difficult ascent back toward Camp 2 to check on Chantal and Charing. What they found was devastating. The silence of Dhaulagiri held a grim secret. Chantal Mauduit and Charing Sherpa were found dead in their snow-covered tent at Camp 2. This tragic discovery occurred possibly between May 11th and 13, 1998. Chantal was only 34 years old at the time of her death. When their bodies were first discovered, the initial thought was that they might have died from asphyxiation, a lack of oxygen, possibly caused by cooking inside their tent without proper ventilation, which is a known danger at high altitudes. However, a closer and more detailed examination of Chantal's body changed this initial theory. An autopsy performed later in France revealed that Chantal Mauduit had sustained a broken neck and various other fractures. This finding strongly suggested that a small avalanche or rockfall had hit their tent, causing her fatal injuries while she slept. Charing's death was believed to be from suffocation, which would be consistent with being buried and caught in an avalanche. The force of the snow and ice hitting their tent would have been immense, capable of causing such severe trauma. Even after the autopsy results, some climbers who were on Dhaulagiri that season had different ideas about the cause of death. Ed Viesters, who was also on the mountain, and one of the key figures in her life-saving rescue on K2 in 1992, suggested that carbon monoxide poisoning from a stove could have been the cause of their deaths. He reasoned that there were no clear signs of a major avalanche directly at Camp 2, where their tent was located. The Italian climbers who found the tent noted it was completely covered in snow, and they had to dig it out to see inside, where they found the pair in their sleeping bags. These Italian climbers suggested that the sheer weight of the accumulated snow might have been enough to break Chantal's neck. However, they also noted that Charing's neck was not broken, which complicated the theory of a single, direct impact. In the end, despite these conflicting ideas and the lingering mystery, Chantal's family and friends chose to trust the official results of the autopsy performed in France. Following the tragic discovery, 10 Sherpas undertook the difficult and dangerous task of carefully bringing Chantal's body down the mountain. Her body was flown to Kathmandu, the capital of Nepal. There, following Nepalese tradition, Chantal's body was cremated. Afterward, her ashes were flown to France, bringing her final journey to a close. Despite the controversies that shadowed parts of her career, Chantal Mauduit's climbing record firmly established her as one of the most important female high-altitude climbers of the 1990s. She bravely tackled extremely difficult peaks that few women had attempted, often doing so with very little outside support. While some in the climbing world questioned her methods and claims, almost no one doubted her sheer courage and strength. Her example served as an inspiration, pushing other women to pursue their own ambitious climbing goals. For instance, Liv Sansoz became the second French woman to climb K2 without oxygen, achieving this feat more than 30 years after Chantal's historic ascent, a testament to the enduring impact of Mauduit's pioneering efforts. Beyond her remarkable climbs, Chantal Mauduit showed a deep and genuine care for the Sherpa community in Nepal. She actively helped fund a school in Nepal, demonstrating her commitment to the well-being of the local people who are so vital to Himalayan expeditions. After her untimely death, her friends and family came together to create a foundation in her honor, named the Association Chantal Mauduit Namaste. This organization continues her legacy of generosity by working to help needy Nepalese children, with a special focus on assisting girls and those who require schooling. The Chantal Mauduit School in Kathmandu, established by the association, now teaches over 200 children, providing them with opportunities that might otherwise be out of reach. A trust was also set up specifically to improve living conditions and provide education for Ong Chering Sherpa's children and other children in his village, honoring her climbing partner and the community he represented. Chantal Mauduit followed her passion for the mountains until her very last day, accepting the huge risks that came with such extreme pursuits. Her journey ended on Dhaulagiri, but her story, filled with both amazing feats and deep controversies, continues to be remembered in the world of mountaineering. A complex and compelling tale of ambition, resilience, and the ultimate price of a life lived on the edge.